Hello and welcome to the Week 10 IDP Plus Start Sit Show. Thrilled to have y'all with us this week. And joining me, we have a very, very special guest this week, Dynasty Stanta, also known as Steve. Steve, hello, how you doing, bud?
What's up, Ricky? Doing good. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. Excited to be here
Hell
for
yeah.
to answer all the questions for all our watchers and listeners, helping them to bring home a victory this week. And
Beautiful.
so, wow, we did encourage people to get in early and get their questions in early in the past, and it's already filling up.
Yeah.
Um, so, you want to jump right in, Steve?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. All right, we have Skywalker in. Welcome, Skywalker. You are the first question today. Which two linebackers should I start? Hanley, Oluokun, or Cashman if active? Also, did Oluokun play out of his normal position last week? Start off hot, six tackles, then a no-show most of the game. So
Mm,
I'll start with that question first. So
okay.
what's happening with Jacksonville, Skywalker, is that they have been implementing a rotation
Mm,
program at the linebacker position. When they started the year, it was with four, which included Oluokun, Devin Lloyd, Ventrell Miller, and Chad Muma. They're down to
mm.
three now, at least for last week. But
Great.
Oluokun only played 90% of the snaps.
Yeah.
And this year, too, he's playing more of a little bit of the will as opposed to the Mike, and Lloyd's been
Mm.
playing more of the Mike. So that's what's happening with the Jacksonville linebacker situation. Now, Steve, we'll go to you in terms of the question here. Hanley, Oluokun, or Cashman, which one are you not starting?
Yeah, not. I think I'm gonna go with benching Cashman on this one. Just right back from an injury. Pace had been playing pretty well, so who knows if they give him some more earned playing time. And then Jacksonville allowing only the 23rd most tackles to linebackers specifically, which is slightly worse than Minnesota giving up the 18th most tackles to Jacksonville. So that's kind of the tiebreaker between for me, between him and Aluakon. I mean, Aluakon, despite what you just mentioned there, slightly less snap count, kind of playing weird position. He still started off hot with six tackles. We know what he is, right? He is a monster, even at 90%. So, and then Henley, I think we're probably going to both be on the same page. He's been red hot. So he's almost an auto start right now. So I'm benching Cashman, just a little nervous coming off the injury, and not even saying that Jacksonville's playing Mac Jones, so not exactly expecting the offense to be running super efficiently on the Jacksonville side. Meaning, if they're going three and out every possession, not going to be a lot of opportunities for Cashman, even if he is fully healthy and plays 100% of the snaps.
You were spot on with what I was thinking with Mac Jones at quarterback right
Yeah,
there. I just do not have a
not
lot
good.
of confidence that Jacksonville is going to get a lot of offensive plays. I
Yeah.
could see Minnesota only being on the field for like 52 snaps on defense versus like a typical 65, 66. So
Mhm.
that's the reason Cashman's out for me. And on Hanley, to your point, where they also had a rotation going for the Chargers for a period of time. Now Colson is going on IR, and in the last 2 weeks, Hanley has played almost 100% of their defensive snaps, except when it got late in the
Right.
blowout game. So I'm
Mhm.
with you on Hanley and Oluokun.
Mhm.
That's going to allow me to make a plug though for the IDP Advice Show. So on Wednesday mornings, folks, you on this same channel, I've been doing an IDP Advice Show, and some of the commentary I did about Oluokun and I just did about Hanley, you're going to get all those nuggets because I've been studying snap counts and where people are being positioned on defense to give y'all great guidance and including some good waiver pickups. So tune in on Wednesday mornings. And of course, you could tune out throughout the rest of the week. But Wednesday mornings, you'll see that IDP advice. Okay. One of
Beautiful.
our regulars, and we always love seeing him. Harry, welcome, Harry Brooks. Hope you're doing well. Need a roster spot. Keep Zach Allen over Keon White.
Oh
Steve,
boy. Yeah, they're both good. Man, Zach Allen, I've got a weird relationship with because I was all over loving him last year, and he's doing this year what I expected him to do last year. He's basically playing the same amount. He's playing a ton on that defensive line, which is hard to come by, and I just could not believe my eyes last year with how much he was playing snap counts wise and just the not production coming along with it. This year, however, that seems to have taken a turn and he's crushing. Keon White, a nice younger player, sort of sack dependent, but kind of plays all over the place. A lot of different opportunities. If this is dynasty, I think I'm going Keon White, but I think he's probably asking for a redraft. In which case, I'm going to keep Zach Allen pretty handily there.
Man, you and I are just aligned so far this morning.
Nice.
And I was actually thinking the same thing. Dynasty, it's going to be Keon White over Zach, but
Yeah.
but Zach Allen over Keon White for the rest of the season. So
Mm-hmm.
part of it too is Zach Allen, I think, put up a goose egg last week, if I remember correctly,
Mm-hmm.
which was expected in the game they were playing. Was it who? Crud, I forgot who they were playing, but whoever it was, they didn't give up a lot of points to interior defensive line and so forth. So
Mm-hmm.
wasn't expecting much from him. And then Keon White, who had a good start, then kind of fell off, and then had a good game last week. So you have a little bit of that recency bias going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still with you for redraft. The rest of the year, I'm sticking with Zach Allen.
Yeah.
All right, another regular Fantasy Sports is with us today. Welcome, Fantasy Sports. How do you rank these safeties for the rest of the season? Quentin Lake, Tyler Newbin, Damar Hamlin, Tyke Smith, and Evan Williams.
Oh man, this is just a big one giant tier, right? Like these guys all feel like they're in the same tier to a certain extent. Rest of season, man, they all play a good amount. Man, Tyke Smith, when he's on the field, he is just crushing. But that's the problem. He's a little bit in. He seems to be a little banged up this year. I don't want to say injury prone yet because it's only a rookie, and he's not quite reaching that 100% of snaps as frequently as we would like. So he seems like this really like boom bust option. But he's going to be up there for me. Tyler Newman was hot there for a stretch and has kind of come back down to earth. Same with Quentin Lake. He's all over the place. They keep moving him around and where he's playing. Damar Hamlin's pretty steady and is hitting that 100% snap. And then Evan Williams, another rookie, I believe, right, who's kind of taken over
Fourth rounder.
one of
Yep.
the safety roles there with moving Bullard is playing kind of like the slot. So like this is really hard. This is just one big tier for me. All right, if I'm going off the hip, give me the I'm gonna go with the big play guy. Give me Smith, Newbin, Lake, Williams, Hamlin, just because he doesn't give you much more than tackles. I feel like for Hamlin, so he's kind of like the most boring safe option. But that's what I'm gonna go off the hip.
Oh, that's it. Now this one, I don't know if we're aligned on.
Yeah,
So
no, probably not.
yeah. this this
This
is
is
a tough
hard.
one.
This is very hard.
Yeah. So Evan Williams is injured right now. So
Ah,
that's a
I
problem as
missed that.
well. And then Tyke Smith, he's been playing that slot cornerback role.
Mm-hmm.
So when they've been playing teams that had a lot of 11 personnel, he's been on the field a lot. But when they haven't played 11 personnel, he hasn't been on the field until this past week, where they kind of used him, covering Travis Kelce out of that slot.
Yeah, which is
So
nice.
so Hamlin, you had him last because Lake's been playing a lot deeper, a lot more. Evan Williams has been playing deeper. Dubin's been playing deeper. What I just said about Smith,
Yeah.
Hamlin was actually the one I had first. So that one we're on the extreme
Okay.
on. Um, I would probably go Hamlin, Lake, Newbin, Williams, and Smith just because of the playing time situation.
Yeah.
However, if I've got all five of these,
Yeah.
it's gonna be matchup dependent week over week.
Yeah.
That's how I would be treating this, and I would look at who they're playing. If there's once again like the 11 personnel, if it's a team that tends to give up a lot of points to safeties. Which, by the way, if you subscribe to IDP Plus, we have a tool that shows that by position, and you can rank and see how many points are given up at each position to various teams. So definitely you could check that out as well. So unfortunately, fantasy sports, we definitely don't have a consensus here, but hopefully with our elaboration, you have some food for thought. All right, let's go to TM. TM says, how do you rank these linebackers rest of the season? Jewell, Cashman, Gibbons, and Campbell. Do you think Campbell's high snap share is dependent on Malcolm Rodriguez being out? I'll take the latter one to start off here. Their answer is, I think the answer is yes. And once again, that was another thing I tackled. See what I did there? Tackled on the IDP advice show this past week. Yes, Campbell's played more than 90% of the snaps both the last 2 weeks, but I
Mhm.
think it's because Rodriguez. Well, first Derek Barnes was hurt; he's on IR.
Mhm.
Then Rodriguez is out hurt. Then Jalen Reeves Maven got hurt during the game last week. So I think while at least those guys are out, and Reeves Maven went on IR yesterday, by the way,
Yeah.
but at least while Rodriguez is out, I think you can see Campbell in that high 90% range.
Mhm.
Now back to the other question, Steve. Jewell, Cashman, Gibbons, and Campbell. How would you rank them for the rest of the year?
Rest of the season, oh man. Well, it feels like yeah. Whether it's been forced on us on the Lions or not, Campbell maybe is hopefully turning that corner to be a reliable, productive fantasy starter. So I like to see that. You had to assume it was coming at some point. Um, I know Anzalone's still playing like 100% of snaps, but it seems like Campbell's actually been out producing. So I'm not sure if they're just giving Campbell the more advantageous spot on the field at this point as well. But that's kind of a good sign. So despite the answer from a couple questions ago, I think Cashman, if he can stay healthy, I'll probably take him as my number one. I'll probably take Campbell as number two. Honestly, Jewell and Givens, you can flip a coin. Jewell's been fighting health issues. He's in, he's out. Who knows if Trevin Wallace has earned a spot at this point as like the number one guy, or if they're going to push, the rookie to, sort of the LB2 spot. Although when Thompson and Jewell were both fully healthy, they were playing both close to 100% of snaps. So that could be good. But I don't know. Jewell just feels like he's kind of falling off at this point. So him and Givens are flip a coin. They're 3A and 3B for me there. But I think more importantly, Campbell and Cashman are my top two. If you're forcing me to pick, I'll take Jewell over Givens.
Interesting. So I think we're aligned on the top two with Cashman and Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm there with you. Gibbons, though, he graded out really well last week. Shout out to PFF in terms of both run stoppage and pass coverage this past week. And what's interesting, they trade away Ernest Jones. They acquired Jerome Baker as part of it, and they
Yeah.
sit out Baker for 2 straight weeks where
Yeah.
Baker doesn't get any defensive snaps.
Mm-hmm.
um, Leaving Gibbons and Murray in there. But boy, Murray's been sucking as well the last
Mm-hmm.
couple of weeks. It's like he's quit for the year or something happened. I'm not sure. But I have Gibbons third and Jewell fourth because I do think they're regretting the Murray signing probably already. He's going to be well. This is rest of season though, not dynasty. Let me take that back. But the way Gibbons is playing and all, I don't think they're going to take him out. He's playing with heart and hustle and accumulating stats. So it's Cameron Cashman top two, Gibbons and Jewell. All right.
I get
Thank you,
down with
Fantasy
that.
Breakup. All right. Harry Brooks. Harry with another question here. Where do you rank Taysom Hill rest of the season among the tight ends? I think his value is all time high with so many injuries in New Orleans. He can run, pass, and catch. Oh, that is true. All right, Santa. Are you a Hill lover or a hater?
Major hater. I can't stand this guy for fantasy football. I mean, it's either 2 touchdowns and 60 total yards is like his ceiling every week, or 3 or 4 points as a floor. So he's one of these incredible boom bust guys because he's not, despite all these injuries, he's not a focal point or a consistent involved in the offense. Um, yeah, if they happen to get tackled on the one, he's probably going to come in and steal touchdowns from Alvin Kamara. So I hate this guy. I agree, though, the opportunity's there. I mean, make him a low end tight end one just because tight ends are so terrible this year. So he's probably like 10 to 12 for me the rest of the year. But like, I normally don't have any of this guy because I just can't, only unless it's like a best ball scoring format. I want nothing to do with this guy because you'll never pick the right week to start him unless you're forced to start him on a weekly basis. Your tight end room is just that bad. But yeah, this guy's been a thorn in fantasy for me for a long time. Not a fan whatsoever. I don't get the infatuation. He can pass. He doesn't pass. He's not a quarterback. They don't use him as a quarterback. He should be designated as a running back more than any other position. He's more of a running back than a tight end or a quarterback. I can't stand him in fantasy. So yeah, but
Other than
unfortunately,
other than that, let us know how you feeling, Santa.
yeah,
You're holding back there,
he's
man.
one of those guys that I just passionately hate.
Yeah. What so look, and I think most of our listeners know that have been regulars, but if we have some new people today, and welcome to our new listeners and watchers, I'm an LSU and Saints fan, so I always like to be transparent on that. But Taysom Hill to me is no different than a lot of the other tight ends. And Jeff Ratcliffe from FTN, when I listen to him sometimes on Sirius XM, he talks about the 3 for 32 tight ends. If you have a lot of tight ends, 3 catches, 32 yards, but then if they catch a touchdown, then all of a sudden it's 12 points, and everybody's all excited, and they drop their current tight end and pick that one up, and the next week that guy's back to 3 for 32, and a different tight end scores a touchdown. Taysom Hill's no different to me than a lot of those 3 for 32 tight ends. Um, and with the Saints situation, look, I know Shaheed's out, Olave's out, Cedric Wilson's out, Bud Means is out. So there's this feeling that, oh, Taysom Hill, the Saints offensive line, even though they're starting to get some
Stinks.
healthy pieces back, it's bad. Derek Carr is really struggling.
Mhm.
There's just not enough horsepower there. I just think Taysom will continue about what he's been doing all season. So if you're happy with that, go with it. And if you're not, and if you're in the Santa camp, then leave him out. I
Mhm.
think he's just going to be one of these, like I said, using the Radcliffe analogy, sort of this, 32 yards, couple of catches,
That's
maybe a
perfect.
touchdown, maybe not. That's what you're going to get from him. I don't
Mhm.
think it's going to change radically the rest of the season.
Mhm.
All right, fantasy breakout. By the way, in fantasy breakout, somebody beat you first. I think this is the first week all year that somebody beat you to get in questions first. But always glad to have you, fantasy breakout. All right, he's got Will Anderson out, Steve. And he's got to pick one from Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Zach Allen, Keon White, Dante Fowler. So a lot of choices here. Sweat has a great matchup against the Patriots, but he hasn't been super productive. Talked earlier how Allen didn't do much last week, so there's that recency bias, while White did a little bit more. Fowler has been, interestingly enough, rejuvenated this year in
Yeah.
Washington. I know he played with Quinn in Dallas last year, but he's getting about 50% of the snaps every week and has been very productive. And then Jeff Simmons, who's one of the top interior defensive linemen, but he's got that elbow and the Tommy John surgery. He's doing much better than I expected. So,
Mhm.
Steve, where are you leaning out of these right here?
Oh man, this is another group. Like these guys are all they're all sort of in a big tier. Um Boy, oh boy. So so you said who who has the Patriots? Sweat has the
Sweat has the
Patriots.
Patriots,
So
yeah.
that means Keon has the Bears. Who are do you know off the top of your head the matchups there? Tennessee
So,
against
so Jeffrey Simmons has the Chargers,
okay.
and Zach Allen has the Chiefs. For
Okay.
Yeah, so you're probably not going to get a lower likelihood of a Mahomes sack, but there might be a lot of Kareem Hunt up the middle that could contribute some tackles for Zach Allen.
Okay. Oh, and then Fowler has the Steelers then, it looks like. Right?
Yes, and the
Okay.
Steelers' offensive tackles have been struggling this year as well, and Russell Wilson is no Justin Fields from a mobility perspective.
Yeah. So that kind of leaves what jumps off right now on the chart that I'm looking at as far as simply just tackles surrendered by position. And Pittsburgh is number one allowing tackles to the defensive line. So that's a good sign right off the bat for Fowler. And then if you add a sack on top of that, if he happens to get there, it kind of makes me want to go with him. I'm trying to skim the list for the rest of the matchups here. So Tennessee versus Tennessee. Um, Chargers.
So there's a piece of me
Yeah.
that there's a piece of me that even though Sweat is coming back off of that shin injury, well, May has been a little bit more mobile though than Jacoby Brissett, so I was starting to lean towards Sweat a
Right.
little bit.
Right.
Um,
But May takes sacks too, despite being mobile. That's
that's a
the hard.
that
So I think where I'm like trying to work this out in my head is like, and I like to offer these scenarios. Like if you're looking for the high end play, if you're going sack or bust and you want the ceiling play, I think it might be Sweat. I think Sweat might be the ceiling play here. But if you're looking for the safer floor with ceiling upside, I think it might be Fowler. Just looking at that matchup, points allowed, and like you said, he seems to be deciding to be a good player again this year.
Well,
So I think I'm taking Sweat as a ceiling play, but a total boom bust, because if he doesn't get a sack, he's not exactly like a big tackle guy. So you're going to end up with maybe 1 to 2 points if he misses out on a sack, or possibly two. But from a floor standpoint, I think I'm actually going to go Fowler, or you could maybe, of course, Zach Allen's been a great floor play all year too, so he'd probably be like backup number 2 there. But so that's where I think I'm going with that one.
yeah, and this is where scoring systems comes into play, which is a great
Right.
point. If you get big points for a sack or whatever, I'm absolutely going to take my chance with Montez Sweat. But if
Mhm.
you don't get big play scoring for like things like a sack, I'm actually leaning towards Zach Allen in this one against the Chiefs.
Mhm.
I think Kareem Hunt's going to run the ball 20 to 25 times again. That's going to, I think Zach Allen will have several opportunities for tackles. So I think that's the way I would lean and all. So there you go, fantasy breakout. Hope that helps. And we're
And
going to
that
move on. Oh, go
just
ahead.
real quick, that list I was looking at, tackles surrendered. So Pittsburgh was number 1. The Chiefs are number 5, so it's not that far off. So totally agree. Allen actually might be the best floor play there.
Okay. Because he's going to get 80 to 90% of the snaps where Fowler will get
Mhm.
about 50. So I think I would go Allen over Fowler given that additional information as well.
Agreed.
Fantasy Sports is asking, is Olave Holder dropping a 10-teamer redraft PPR? Um, the answer is yes, in my opinion. Steve, do you agree?
Oh, for to hold him, I thought
And
maybe
then
I'm
particularly in a 10-teamer, so they put him on IR yesterday.
okay.
There's a high probability he doesn't come back this year. If unlike the Dolphins, we're trying to play for the playoffs. The Saints have no playoff chances. Shame on my Saints if they let him play again this year. But particularly in a 10 team, there should be more depth on the waiver wire and other wide receivers. And it's not like Olave was lighting things up with Derek
Yeah.
Carr and so forth. So fantasy sports, now it does depend on other options. Okay. If you're dropping him for, oh man, who's somebody off the top of my head? An Alex Pierce, if that's the best
Yeah.
he can do, I'm not so sure. I'm dropping him, but it all depends on what's on your waiver wire. If you could let us know maybe, and we could come back to it. What are some of your options? We can talk about it. But off the cuff with just this information, I just don't think. And then even if he does come back later, the Saints will be out of the playoffs, and I can see Rattler or Hayner at quarterback as well, which
Yeah.
would take away from his opportunities. He'll throw for 160 yards a game, or probably max roughly, which
Yeah.
isn't going to be conducive. So I'm comfortable dropping him. Steve,
Okay,
you?
yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I thought I didn't see that he said hold or drop, so I thought it was just hold. And you were saying yes. I was like, no, no, definitely easy drop for me. Easy drop in that format.
Okay, good deal. All right, Fantasy Breakout is asking, pick one out of EJ Speed, Jermian Sherwood, or Caden Ellis, who had a really big game
Yeah.
last week. Really, really big game. So we got Ellis going against the Saints this week. We have Sherwood going against the Cardinals in some James Conner action. And then we have EJ Speed going against the Bills.
Whew. So yeah, James Conner, the overwhelming leader in I believe it was broken
Broken
tackles.
tackles, that is
Yeah.
correct.
So that scares me a little bit for sure, Wood. Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I was like, this is easily Speed. I don't care about matchups. He's been like a tackling machine this year. That defense is on the field for overwhelmingly the most plays in the NFL. Then I do go look at the matchup, and it's Buffalo surrendering just the 28th most tackles to linebackers, and that scares me a little bit. So game script, I think, is going to be huge in that game. If Indy can find a way to keep it close, that might be good for Speed, but I worry about a blowout. So I worry about Indy pulling starters by the end of the game, and I worry about Buffalo just scoring in 1 to 5 plays every drive, and there just not being a lot of opportunities. So like my initial thought was obviously this is Speed, but now I'm kind of working it back a little. Sherwood does worry me a tad. The Cardinals don't exactly give up a ton of tackles to linebackers. They're 22nd on this list, and then Atlanta has a much better matchup, although the Saints offense is a lot different right now. So, I'm gonna still, I think, lean towards going with speed just because he's been crazy consistent. Although so has Sherwood lately. He's been a monster. But I do you know how's like the CJ Mosley thing? I haven't
So
been super.
Mosley's going to be inactive again this week.
All right,
So
that's
he's already
good.
been ruled out. But I'm with you. I'm going with EJ Speed on this one.
Yeah.
So you were talking about game script and how this could flow. The Colts have still tended to play these guys 100% of the snaps. On top of
Mhm.
that, to your point, um, with when now granted it was when Richardson was quarterbacking, but they were playing like 80 or 90 snaps a week versus the typical 65,
Yeah.
66. And Flacco played so bad this past week that they were up there in the 70 something range again.
Hmm.
I could see the Bills getting to a big lead and handing off to Ty Johnson and Ray Davis to
Hmm.
run out the game in the fourth quarter. So you might see speed with a slower start, but then ramp
Hmm.
up in the fourth quarter. So I'm going
Yeah.
speed is my final call on that one. Steve?
Now, yeah, I'm gonna say Sweden, but the only thing in the back of my mind, we've got revenge game narrative for Caden Ellis, and I love revenge game narratives. So but no, I'm gonna stick with you. My brain says speed, my heart says Ellis, but I'm gonna go with my brain with speed on that one.
All righty. One more with fantasy breakout here. Pick a defense special teams. Jets, Patriots, or Titans. So we have the Jets against Arizona. As we talked about, New England against the Bears, which, by the way, the Patriots have a bad defense, so I expect Caleb Williams to do well. Williams has been doing great against poor teams and horrible against good teams.
Yeah.
And then the Titans against the Chargers and all. Right now, I'm leaning the Jets on this one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too. The Arizona offense just is massively underperforming this year, despite James Conner being a pretty good option. But the passing game, I don't know what's wrong with it, but it stinks. The Jets have a really good secondary, and of course, that D line should be getting pressure on Murray. So, yeah, I think it's pretty easily the Jets on that one.
All righty. Let's move on to late night toker here. Um, need three to pick four. So let's just say who we're going to leave out. Cup, Lamb, Nakua, London.
Whew, that's a nice set there. Oh man, is
While,
it?
while, while you're thinking about that, I'm actually, this is going to be unpopular decision or, not normal, but I'm leaving out Lamb.
That's
I,
what I was gonna think about. Yeah.
I don't trust Cooper Rush. And then there's reports this morning that Trey Lance is going to have some packages, and I certainly don't trust him.
Hmm.
Um, Now the Rams do have a tough matchup against the Dolphins, but it's Cooper, it's Puka, as long as they're healthy, which they are. I know London has the hip pointer situation, but the Saints are just they traded Lattimore, Paulson Adebo on IR. By the way, as a side note, that means Alontae Taylor hasn't been playing in the slot as much. He didn't last week. Ugo
Hmm.
Amadi playing the slot more for you IDPers out there. So don't
Hmm.
expect Taylor to keep up those points as he was doing in the past. But I trust Rush the least, so I'm benching Lamb. Steve?
Okay. Yeah, that was my initial thought. I'm just because Lamb's banged up, and then you insert Cooper Rush. Not a great matchup. I was thinking about possibly saying London too. Similar concerns. If he's active, but it's going to be like an AJ Green active where he's more of a decoy, or he's on a snap limitation. So I'm a little bit worried about that as well. Especially, I expect Atlanta to kind of kicked the crap out of the Saints this week. No offense there, Ricky.
Oh,
But so,
I'm expecting it.
so, so if that does actually happen, they're not going to risk London, especially being banged up. So I agree with your Lamb take. I'm going to say London, but I will not fault you or him, benching Lamb either. I just think if Lamb is healthier, going to be even more relied upon by a stinky Cooper Rush. So it's just whether they, are smart enough to scheme up maybe shorter routes, easier routes to get him open. So I'm going to say London, but I absolutely agree with the methodology on Lamb as well.
I do think London will get his before he gets benched. So
Hopefully, yeah. Let's hope.
yeah. Well, no, not as a Saints fan, not really, but
for Toker there.
exactly. All right. So Legend is asking. I don't know if we've had Legend before, so welcome, Legend. Should I start Cooper Cup and Devontae Smith, or AJ Brown and Darnell Mooney, or Kareem Cup? Need
Ooh.
one flex and one wide receiver. I'm not. Wait, am I following this question correctly? I should have started Cooper Cup. So he's saying he's starting Coop, and then he's asking about Devontae Smith or AJ Brown. I'm not 100% sure.
Um,
Let's pick one wide receiver and one flex out of this. That's how we'll do it.
yeah, so that's what's basically, of the four players there, we need one, at least one wide receiver and a flex. So I think it's to me, it's man, these are good options. I was gonna say definitely Kareem Hunt, but man, what?
No, I'm actually with AJ Brown as the first no-brainer on this list against that
Right?
Cowboys defense.
Yeah, easily.
And then it gets tricky a little bit more. So when
Jeez.
Brown plays, Smith doesn't do as well. And Brown is supposed to
Yeah.
play, so that bumps him down a little bit. We just said the nice things about Cup in the last one.
Hmm.
I think Cup is like a low-end wide receiver one, high-end wide receiver two this week.
Hmm.
I'm just, boy, I tell you what, I'm just not a huge Kareem Hunt fan.
Yeah.
And it is against
Tougher
Denver,
matchup. Yeah,
tougher
much
matchup.
tougher.
And to the point about London being banged up a little bit, as we talked about in the last question, you could see Mooney going off against this
Uh-huh.
Saints team.
That's what's
Um,
tough.
so I'm going Brown, and now I'm down to Cup versus Mooney.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at as well. It's so hard to say bench Cup because we know what he can do, we know what he is, and if he goes off, it's going to feel bad. So
Yeah, I think
I'm
I'm going.
leaning
Go ahead.
because I think of it like which one can you handle more, right? Can you handle missing out on a Darnell Mooney, boom game, being that he is we know what he is, and he's been doing very well this year, but he is one of those boom bust type guys. Or can you handle missing out on Cooper Cup boom game when that's mostly what Cooper Cup does is boom game. So that's kind of where my mentality lies,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna take the more sure-handed guys. So Brown and Cup for me.
yeah, I'm with you too. The more I reflected on it, it's like don't want to try and be the cool kid and say, "Ooh, I played Mooney over Cup," and then just be
Exactly.
disgusted when Cup goes, 10 for 110 and a touchdown. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so Cup and Brown it is from us. And so
Mhm.
let me just make this quick plug real quick. Um, we have about 30 minutes left. We'll be stopping questions roughly at the top of the hour. If we haven't gotten to your questions yet, to make sure, if you want to make sure your question is answered today, you can use the super chat feature, make a contribution, and then that will make sure that we answer your question before we go off the air. Okay? So, because otherwise we might not get to all the questions that are in queue today. Late Night Toker also has one more question. Pick two out of three between Mixon, Hunt, and Connor. So we have
Whew.
Joe Mixon in a little bit of a interesting matchup against the Lions. We have Kareem Hunt, as we talked about, against Denver, and Connor against the Jets.
Oh boy. Jets is a good matchup. Denver, I want to say, Denver is actually giving up a good amount of points to running backs, but Mixon's been so hot. Houston has who?
Yeah, Detroit. I can't see
Detroit.
sitting Mixon. He's getting like 25
Right.
touches a game roughly. So I think Mixon is in, and then it goes to Hunt and Connor. Um, and I think I'm going Connor against the Jets.
Yeah, and of course Mixon now has the worst matchup of the Lions literally give up the least amount of points to running backs. That just makes this very difficult. So yeah, I agree. You kind of have to go with Mixon just because of the playing time and the role that he's locked into. Even though the matchup stinks, I'm gonna go Hunt though over Connor. The matchups are pretty close there. As far as points surrendered, they both have decent matchups there, and I just think what we saw last week from Hunt, especially like he's locked in goal line 20 touch guy. This is what the Chiefs want to do. They want to save all this firepower, save the passing game as much as they can. I think they're going to unleash in the playoffs. So, especially as these colder months come around, I think they're going to rely heavy on the run game. So, yeah, I'm going to take Hunt over Connor myself there.
Okay. I'm going to split it with you there. Sorry to do this to you, Late Night Toker. I'm leaning just a tidbit more than Connor. I can be convinced to go Hunt. Um, but I think I'm leaning towards Connor in this one. But we do wish you the best. Okay, speaking of Connors, so we're good. So for those that are either just joining or whatever, we've been pretty detailed in our discussions. We're going to start shutting them, making them a little bit shorter, so that we can try to get to a few more questions. But once again, if you want to get your question answered for sure, even if you've already typed it in, do a super chat. We'll be sure to get to it. Next question from Connor LaRose. Um, One tight end, one wide receiver, one flex. Hey, folks, in the future, we're going to ask you all to kind of tighten it up a little bit, in fairness to everybody. So this is a little bit of a long question. We'll do this one, but future longer questions, we got to be fair to everybody. So this is asking quite a bit here. In the future, if y'all can narrow it down just a little bit more. Okay, so on the wide receiver front, you taking the chance that Nico Collins is playing tonight, Steve? They activated him off of IR. He had a full practice in last day, but they waited till late in the week to do this. Are
Uh-huh.
you taking a chance on Nico Collins? I think that's really the big question here.
I mean, if he's playing, he's in my lineup. So yeah, I
But
mean,
he
this is
plays the
we're
Sunday night game is the problem.
yeah.
Being able to fall back.
Hopefully they're on sleeper. You can do some auto subs. That's why I love that feature.
That
And who plays? Who's Monday night? Is there anybody in here that
it's
plays
Miami
after?
against the Rams on Monday night.
So he's got no one from there. But um, oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I'm still if it seems like Nico's trending towards playing. So I would probably roll the dice. Yeah, this all depends also on where your team is at, how risky you can decisions you can make. T tight ends easy there, Ferguson for me. And then I definitely like Rome as either a wide receiver or flex. And then if you don't want Nico Collins as a wide receiver or flex, I guess I like the Pearsall matchup. I think I would take a shot on Pearsall. So he's my flip flop between Collins playing or not.
Okay. So I'm going Jake Ferguson to tight end with you.
Mhm.
I think I'm taking the chance on Nico. I don't think they
Mhm.
would have activated him from IR because they didn't need to, because they could have waited the extra week.
Right.
And they didn't call up a wide receiver from the practice squad that I saw either. So I'm going to roll with Nico, with
Mhm.
Ferguson. And then for my flex, with Juwan Jennings being back as well, I'm not feeling as good on Pearsall, to be honest with you. I don't want Tolbert with Cooper Rush. I don't want the Cowboys against the Eagles. So Rico's out. Believe it or not, I'd probably go Taysom Hill or in the flex. Um,
Okay.
that's the Falcons' defense is well. I just feel like Hill's going to screw my Kamara shares, so I
Yeah.
just have a bad feeling. So that's where I'm
Yeah.
going there.
He'll have
Okay,
like 3 touchdowns. And yeah, that well, to your point, that's a huge list. Like we're never gonna be right. So
yeah,
like, yeah, best of luck.
yeah. All right, Ken Vasquez, thoughts on Jalen Hawkins' 14-point prediction on Yahoo? Look, first, I don't
Yeah.
follow any of these predictions, and also don't rely on these projections that they have. I'd rather look at matchups. I'd rather look at expected snap counts and all. Even with Duggar out, Hawkins is not someone I'm putting in there. You probably have much better options. I would not play Hawkins in this one.
Yeah, Yahoo stinks for IDP. Don't know why anyone plays IDP on Yahoo.
All righty, let's go to back to fantasy breakout here. As I mentioned, we're going to try and go a little bit faster, and I'll pick one flex, a half PPR, Hopkins, Dowdle, or Jamison Williams.
Hopkins, Dowdle, James. Again, I'll go stealing floor play. Like I'm not interested in Dowdle at all. Your ceiling play is probably Jameson Williams. If you can afford to take a risk and take a less a more mediocre score or a much lower floor, and then Hopkins is probably your safer. Although he shares a pretty darn good ceiling as well. Lately, so
Two
uh,
touchdowns last week.
yeah,
Totally different player with Mahomes versus Will
totally.
Levis. I know that's hard to imagine, but yeah.
But he's probably gonna have Sertain on. Wait, Sertain's not injured, right? Is he out or is he still
No,
playing?
Surtain he is in and all, and
Okay,
so there is that risk because he was
yeah,
not playing as much in the slot as people thought. They thought he'd be more in the slot, and he hasn't been.
yeah,
So if he's playing on the outside, that probably means more Surtain. But
right,
I think I'm with you where you were going.
yeah,
Fantasy breakout. If like you played against Jamar Chase or something like that on Thursday night, you need some points to catch up. I think I'm rolling the dice with Jamison Williams.
right.
But solid. 7 for 71 probably for Hopkins with a chance for a touchdown, maybe. So Williams for high upside and Hopkins has a little bit more of a floor. I'm
Mhm.
probably leaning towards Hopkins of the two. Williams coming back from the suspension. Uh, I think I'm leaning Hopkins if I had to pick.
Yep.
Okay, Pickens or Cooper Kip?
Kippy. I know Pickens has been a lot better with Russ, but yeah, to me that's still a vastly different just tier of player, fantasy and real life in general. So I'm going Cup there.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Cup. I can see why you're considering Pickens and
Yeah,
all. Like the matchup against Washington, Lattimore won't be playing, even though they just traded for him. I don't know how much of this Russ is going to continue to cook like the first 2 weeks as teams start adjusting to how the Steelers are using him. So I'm going Cup on this one as well. Summer is asking, need to pick three out of Bolton, Levante David, Gibbons, Bernard, and Al Shahir, and Zach Vaughn. So Al Shahir, I haven't seen.
I think
And
he's back. I thought I saw he shed
I,
his injury
yeah,
designation.
but I'm trying to check real quick and see if they have. Oh, that's right. They're not playing.
He's
They're playing later. So I
right.
was trying to
He's
quick check
full.
for inactives, but it's later.
And he was a
So
full participant, so I think. But first week back, a little
I,
nervous for sure.
the Chiefs' defense the last couple of weeks have only played in the low 50 snaps and all, and it's really impacting Bo's productivity. And I don't see that changing this week as well because I think the Chiefs continue to short passes to Kelsey and Hopkins, running a lot. So Bolton's off this list for me. I'd probably leave Al Shire out just because it's tonight and simply come back from the injury. Even though I know the Lions run the ball, but man, what if they call him inactive? Do you and you don't have a fallback and so forth, just to be on the safe side? So,
Right.
so I'm taking those two out. You might disagree with that. Um, and then
So I would
I'm
leave.
probably going Levante, Gibbons, and
Give him
Bond. Believe it or not, you
on.
may feel differently about Bernard. Bernard, I just worry about him. It seems like is he going to get hurt in this game? So because he seems like he's always getting hurt, and it could be a blowout. And where that is where Buffalo has taken people out, has been in blowout games. So I'm going Levante, Gibbons, and Zach Vaughn. That's my three.
I think I'm pretty much there with you,
Oh,
Levante.
Summer just
Gibbons.
right underneath it. She said she actually
Oh,
needs four. So we're leaving out two.
oh, just two. I feel
Yep.
like I'll leave out Bolton and Bernard then.
Okay. So, Summer, if you have an appetite to wait till tonight and take that risk, because if Al Shire was playing in the earlier games, New was playing, I'd probably have him in as well. So, the Bernard and Al Shire, that's the risk chance you got to take, I think.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. All right. About 17 minutes or so left in the show, folks. All right. Julia is asking, welcome, Julia. I apologize, but I don't remember you asking a question in the past. But if you did, sorry if I'm forgetting, but welcome to the show. Stevenson or Evan Ingram in a full PPR?
Ugh.
Are we trusting Mac Jones here?
You know what? Bad quarterbacks usually lock onto one guy. It's just going to be is that one guy going to be Ingram or Thomas, or
And
a running back?
and it could be Mac Jones more dink and dunk. He's not a big yards per attempt player, which could be more
Yeah.
for Ingram as well. Um, and so then you have Stevenson going against the tough Bears defense. I actually have to admit, I because of what I perceive as this interesting matchup play, and Stevenson had two touchdowns last week. I always worry when someone had two touchdowns,
Same.
regression. So I'm gonna go with Ingram on this one. Steve, are we gonna
That's
split the
where I
vote?
initially went. It's Ingram like 55-45 for me over Stevenson.
Okay.
So
So
it's still
Julia, we
very
agree.
close.
We agree it's a close call, but we're leaning
Yeah.
towards Ingram right now. Okay.
And mainly because of the PPR.
All right. Um, one of our regulars who I always forget how to say the last name, and last year he kind of taught me in the comments, and I can't remember. I apologize, but glad to have you. And he needs to replace Will Anderson. So he's got Kendricks, Troy Anderson, Landman, or Jay Brooks or Pete Warner. He needs one of these. I'm not taking the chance on the Falcons linebackers. Um, Anderson finally is supposed to be active this week, which is
Yeah.
great. But how much he plays versus Landman,
I
I'm
know.
not taking that chance. So those two are the first two out. Um, Warner against the Falcons. We have Brooks with Miami in the Monday night game against the Rams, or Kendricks against Eric Kendricks going here against the
He's
Eagles.
been very good, and the
He's
Eagles,
he's been 5 tackles, 4 assists. It feels like almost every week with nine
yeah,
total tackles. Nothing much more
which
than that.
which is, I mean, that's a great floor for most people, I would assume. If you were playing Will Anderson, though, I might take an assumption that this could lean sack heavy, but none of these are really sack heavy guys, except for maybe the Atlanta guys. Anderson always seems to come up with big plays, but I agree the playing time is a concern. Warner's been pretty good lately, but he's the same. He's just a younger version of Kendricks. Like, he'll give you tackles and literally nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Werner
I'm
did
gonna
lead the
go
Werner did lead the Saints in tackles last week. But
right.
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm gonna go Kendricks. He seems to be the safest of this group, and the most consistent of this group. So, yeah, I'm gonna go Kendricks.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think I'm going Kendricks as well. Werner would be my second choice.
Mm.
Okay, Pachuco TV, who's been joining us the last several weeks. Welcome. Start one on a Tank Dell, DeAndre Hopkins, Marvin Harrison, or Calvin Ridley.
God, I love Tank Dell so much. It
Even with
mostly he's a dynasty guy for me, but this week I think I'm going Hopkins out of that list.
Yeah, the risk with Dell is he's supposed to play. Once again, it's the night
Yeah,
games we talked about. Even with Nico back, I'm comfortable playing Tank Dell. But with that back
he'll be
injury, what
good
if he
for
gets a hit? No, he is on the smaller side. I do love Hopkins as well. I think I'm going Hopkins on this list as well. Out
him.
of curiosity, is Harrison last on this list for you?
Close. No, I think Ridley's still last. I'm not a Ridley guy.
Yeah. Both Bears offensive starting tackles are out, by the way. As a
Okay.
side note for those IDPers looking at that
Ooh.
from those playing against the Bears. Talk to me about Jack Gibbons. Is he a breakout this player this week or a scary start? Deeply looking at Bolton or Gibbons. Well, we did talk about Gibbons a little bit earlier, Drew. Sorry if you missed that part of the conversation. Do expect him to start, and expect if anybody comes out, it might be Murray instead of him, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
So I'm actually going Gibbons over Bolton. But we also talked about Bolton a little bit earlier, with the Chiefs
Mhm.
playing so few snaps on defense every week because their offense is just controlling the ball and having so many plays. I'm
Mhm.
leaning Gibbons. Steve?
I agree. Totally agree. I think I would play him over Bolton for sure.
Okay, as a reminder, we're down about 10 or 12 minutes. So if you want to make sure you get your questions answered, definitely use the super chat. I'm looking down the list. I don't think we're going to get to them all. Okay, Eric Anders. I don't know if we've had Eric before. Welcome, Eric. Half PPR. Laporta, one of the biggest disappointments based on where he was drafted this year, who hasn't had more than 6 targets in one game all year and has had either, I think, 4 the last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
versus Hawkinson in Minnesota. And of course, Hawkinson ramping his way back in. Um, and with the Vikings playing that Jacksonville defense, I am actually going Hawkinson on this one.
Mhm. I think I'm right there with you. I just wanted to check the matchups quickly.
Yeah, so I,
Houston.
I if I don't know it off the top of my head, but I wouldn't be surprised if Houston is giving up a lot to tight ends.
They're showing as the worst matchup for tight ends.
Oh, okay, I am wrong. Okay, I didn't say that. Glad it was live and not recorded. Okay, good.
So yeah, with that, no, so on top of that, I think it's definitely Hawk.
Okay, Tua
Ooh.
versus Cousins. Tua against the Rams or Cousins against the Saints. This is a no-brainer for me. Tua has not been throwing the deep ball. And you've seen that in the Hill and Waddle stats and all. Cousins going against the depleted Saints.
Mhm.
Granted, there might be a little bit rah-rah because of the interim coach. I think they're toast, man. I'm going
Yeah,
Cousins. This is the easy one for me.
I think I'm with you.
Okay, we got a tough one here at wide receiver from Emma Bearcat. Welcome, Emma Bearcat. That's a good one. Uh, Brian Thomas, Brian Thomas Jr., Devontae.
Whew. Oh my god! If it were Trevor in there, it would be easy Brian Thomas, but I think I'm going Devontae.
I am.
Although Hurts is injured though.
They're not
Is
worried about Hurts though. They're
okay,
not worried. They're
okay.
not worried. It's an ankle, but they're not worried about it.
All
So
right. So yeah,
yeah,
Devontae.
You and I were in the same mind meld as that one as well. If Lawrence is there, I'm playing Thomas, but with no Lawrence and Mac Jones, I'm going Devontae Smith.
So
J.K.
true.
Kelly asking Bernard, Bolton, or Pace. I don't think you can play Pace with Cashman being back. Because when
Right.
Cashman was back and Pace was playing, granted, he was very efficient, but he was only playing between 30 and 40% of the snaps
Right.
when Cashman was playing. So he's out. We've talked about Bolton in limited playing time. I'm leaning Bernard on this one as a result.
Despite Bernard having the worst matchup possible, I think for linebackers, I'm still going to go for Bernard.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you, but given that other opportunity. Thanks for telling me Kate Otten last week. I would have started Hunter Henry and lost. Legend, you are welcome, buddy,
Nice.
and we're glad to help out. That's what we're here for. We love those stories. If people want to pop those into the comments in the future, um, particularly those where we helped and didn't hurt. Gary, thanks for all your help as well. Always a pleasure. Really appreciate you, and you're very welcome, Ken. Glad to help you out as well. Ice Cold OG Jones. Now I love that. Ice Cold OG Jones. That's pretty cool. Should I drop Warren or Mason to bring on CMC from my IR spot? Yes.
And Mason.
Oh, interesting. You're going to drop Mason. I'm actually dropping Warren.
Oh, because you're thinking if McCaffrey gets injured again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Both
No,
Achilles. And
you're right.
and depending on where the season goes for San Francisco, if they don't get out of this funk and get out of the playoff race, I want Mason instead of CMC. And the way
You're
Najee's
right.
been running the last 3 weeks. Sorry, but yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I was just thinking. I thought Mason might have been banged up, and the rookie Guarendo or whatever was getting a little more run lately. So I think that's why I initially said Mason. But yeah, if he's gonna have time to get healthier, he's definitely the handcuff you want to keep. So I'll change my mind. I agree with Warren.
Okay, great. All right, we're aligned on that one. Uncle Fresh, another. I love, man. We've got some great listeners and watchers with some cool names. Love Uncle Fresh. That's a great name. Now, now, I don't. I'll
Ooh,
be interested in your opinion because I don't usually necessarily worry about this too much. Opponent has Josh Allen. Usually, I
right.
don't worry about that in terms of making my decision. The chances of him throwing a touchdown to the player I'm having is usually, the correlation isn't necessarily there. So I'm
Yeah.
not letting the fact that Josh Allen is playing have any impact on my decision on this one. So then it's down to Kincaid or Ingram for, now maybe you feel differently, but I don't let that phase me.
Yeah, I could see it maybe in a smaller league or something like a 10-teamer, maybe having some sort of impact as far as canceling out points. But even despite that, I like Kincaid just from the matchup alone. So I'm gonna lean Kincaid on that one.
I like the other reason too that I like Kincaid is we've talked about, okay, it is Mac Jones, and so once again, depending on your choices, the other one Ingram we liked more, but in
Yeah.
this one you also have Keon Coleman out, and let me just double check here. And Amari
Oh
Cooper
yeah.
is also inactive as they thought might be as well. So
Okay.
no Coleman, no Cooper. You
Yeah.
got Mac Hollins, you got Khalil Shakir on the outside probably. I'm going to lean towards Kincaid as a result as well.
Maybe we'll finally get a breakout week in week 10 from Kincaid.
Yeah, exactly. Another one that people
Sheesh.
drafted fairly high, like Laporta,
Uh-huh.
not quite as high. Okay, Sam is torn between Purdy and Darnold. Both have good matchups, but who could have a breakout? Um,
Ah.
Darnold against Jacksonville, Purdy against Tampa Bay. They're both fantastic choices. The difference here is I think Minnesota's game becomes a little bit more of a blowout,
Mhm.
whereas I think San Francisco and Tampa Bay, Baker can help to keep it closer. So Purdy's throwing a little bit more. I'm leaning towards Purdy as a result. They're both great options, I think,
Mhm.
but I'm going Purdy. Steve.
If that blowout is due to Sam Darnold tossing TDs, though, you're gonna be missing out. I kind of like Darnold a little bit. I know Tampa Bay's defenses has those games have been shootouts, so it's hard to not take Purdy there. I'm just slightly worried about the passing weapons, quality and healthiness, and if they just dominate with the run game. So that's why and that's a complete game script toss in the air. So that's why I'll go Darnold on that one.
Okay, Sam, we're torn like you are. I It
Let's see.
I think probably when you look at the end of the week, one of them will have 22 points and one of them will have 21 points. It's probably how it's going to end up. So, or 24 and 23, something along those lines, depending on scoring systems. So I think you're going to probably be okay with either one.
Yeah.
Um, I'd rather go with someone who's been starting a little bit more through the past couple of years as well. Pachuco says, "Thank you so much, and I'll try to be here every week. We love to have you here every week." And J.K. Kelly also says, "Thank guys. You're very welcome. Look, we love doing this." Okay, 5 minutes left. I don't know if we're going to get to all the questions, folks. So use that super chat because we're about to wrap her up here. Fantasy sports. Anything different Joel is doing? Had a bad game this week. Only one solo, 3 assists so far. Um, you know what? Unfortunately, here's what we're going to do. Let's save this question for next week since he's already playing. So fantasy sports put in next week. We'll talk about it particularly earlier, so we could do a few more start sits. Okay. Juan says, "Oh, Juan, this is too much, buddy. I'm sorry. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You got to narrow the questions down. Sorry, man. We're trying to be fair to everybody." So, which defense? Bears, Lions, Rams, Broncos, Cardinals, or Patriots? So here's the other thing. Same thing here. These are just too many. We're going to ask you guys to try and narrow it down a little bit so we can make sure and trying to get as many questions. So Juan, I'm really sorry that you've got too much here for us to kind of
Flip
go
a
through
coin.
on short notice on that one.
I
Okay,
like to
Jake.
look at just overall for him to make
Okay.
his own decision there real quick. I like to look at the spreads, look at the point differentials, look at the over unders, low over unders with higher point spreads would point me to a decision of that group.
Yeah. The other thing I like to do with team defenses as well is look at which teams are giving up the most sacks, and
Mhm.
if the team that they're playing that tends to have a lot of sacks, that can cause big plays, that can cause fumbles, interceptions, potential touchdowns. So that's just some food for thought there, Juan. Okay. J.K. Kelly. Oh, he's got Brian Robinson who is out. So drop Carson Steele for Christian Rodriguez. Wouldn't need him this week.
Yeah,
I
Carson Steele's a nothing at this point, so yeah, sure.
Yeah, and Rodriguez got a lot of run late in the game, but the game was
Yeah,
kind of a little bit of a blowout anyway, and he
yeah.
just got signed from the practice squad. He was a call up, so Rodriguez is really fourth string. But if I got B Rob, I'm probably want Rodriguez over Steele as a kind of a potential handcuff potentially later,
Mhm.
potentially. And Juan is asking here, should I drop either Mayfield or Darnold? Unfortunately, yeah, that's we need more
Darn.
context.
I
It's
mean,
probably
if you just need to stick with one for the rest of the season, give me Baker. Just he's shown he's still getting it done with the depleted weapons. Maybe not to the level, but yeah, that is really hard though.
Yeah, and yeah, Baker. I would keep Baker for the rest of the year as well, particularly with Evans expected back as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So
he's
so I
coming
would
back.
do that. Okay, J2 Nice is asking here, and welcome J2 Nice because I think you're new as well. Ramondre Stevenson or Darnell Mooney at the flex?
Oddly, my gut goes Mooney.
I love this matchup against the Saints.
Yeah,
I think Mooney is a great play out of the flex, and so I'm gonna go Mooney as well in this one. All right, we're going to go back to there's one question I did miss that isn't quite as long. Oh, maybe it is. Who for my wide receiver
we
two and
got
flex?
it.
Okay, let's try and help him with this one at least here. So we got let's see, let's wide receivers. Let's see, we got Moore, we got Downs, we got Mooney, we got Myers.
Yeah.
So Moore, Downs, Mooney, Myers.
I like down. I think I'll go Downs and Mooney of that list.
Well, he only needs so for including for flex because Kenneth Walker is
Yeah,
there as well. So you
he's.
still pitching
I
Walker?
think he's saying he's on bye.
Oh yeah, Walker and Madison are by or actually Myers, Walker, and Madison are by. So he's
Yeah.
asking for one wide. So out of the wide receivers, I'm not trusting Wacko for Flacco. The way he played last week, Minnesota really messed with him, and
Yeah.
uh, I'm actually leaning towards Mooney on this one as my wide receiver too.
Yeah.
It might be unconventional, but that's who I'm going with
I
on that
like
one.
it.
Okay. Actually, I think Mooney's a top 18 play this week, in my opinion. And
Nice.
then, so who you putting for your flex on that one?
I'm still gonna stick with Downs.
You gonna stick with Downs on that one too?
Yeah.
I'm not trusting Etienne, particularly with Mac Jones.
Yeah.
And DJ Moore, you know what? I think Caleb is going to have a decent game because of the matchup against Washington, against oh crud, I drew a blank all of a sudden. Oh, come on, Ricky, against New England. So I'm going to go DJ Moore. I think this is going to be a DJ Moore. So we're split on Downs and Moore, but we're both agreeing on Mooney on this one. Okay, we have two other quick ones we're doing. We will call it a wrap. Axis Mythics. That's an interesting one. Start two: Thomas, Harrison, and Stevenson.
Whew, boy.
Stevenson is my
Stevenson.
first one. Yeah. So okay,
Yeah.
we're both aligned on that one.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna say Harrison. Give him a chance.
I just Harrison against the Jets. I don't feel great about.
I
I
know.
don't feel great about Mac Jones and Brian Thomas either. I think
Exactly.
I think I'd rather try Harrison against the Jets.
Yeah.
If once again similar, if Trevor Lawrence was playing, we go with Harrison. Okay, Steve, you can stick with me another minute or two, real
Yeah.
quick. Okay, so Ray Gamer is asking, welcome Ray. Hopkins or Waddle in standard? Worried about Surtain covering Hopkins, and Waddle could bounce back with maybe no Tyreek Hill, which is true.
Right.
But I don't like the way Tua is playing since he's came back. I'd rather go Hopkins, again,
I'm with you.
and even against Surtain. I mean, they're shut down. They're shut down. I still think Hopkins will give you a floor of no worse than 10 points. I think this week.
Yeah,
Waddle
Hopkins
can,
has faced plenty of shutdown guys, and he's still going to get targets. He's still going to earn targets, and yeah, Waddle's just I don't know what to say about that team and that offense this year. Even despite two of back, I just don't want to take the chance.
yeah, Waddle to me is like more of a wide receiver three this week, and Hopkins is kind of a low end two probably. So I think we go with Hopkins on this one. And our last question for the show, folks. Joshua asking, should I start Pitts, Hawkinson, or Henry for tight end? Henry against Chicago. Hawkinson, as we talked about earlier with this Detroit Houston matchup, and Pitts, who really let down. And with the Falcons, one of the things I did some research when the Falcons have been getting big leads, Pitts isn't on the field. They're using more of those blocking tight ends. So you could see Pitts playing the first half and then a run heavy second half. I'm actually playing Algier in a flex spot in one of my leagues because I
Ooh,
think that's how the game's going to go.
yeah.
So out of those, how you feeling?
Oh my god, that one's tough. Yeah, I think Pitts. I agree. I've been sneaking Henry into some lineups because I think he's just going to be a safety blanket for May. Chicago's middle of the pack, giving up points to tight ends. And Minnesota, remind me Minnesota one more time. Who they have? Jacksonville. Okay. So I think where's Jacksonville on this list? Yeah, Jacksonville's slightly higher. Give me Hawkinson for ramping up there. I know he didn't do much in his first week back, but I'm gonna go Hawkinson on that one.
Yeah, so Henry's actually third on the list for me.
Okay.
I can see Pitts catching a 38-yard touchdown against my Saints this week. So there's Ricky's crystal ball. Kyle Pitts for a 38-yard touchdown against the Saints this week. Okay, so
Beautiful.
which would be about 10 points roughly. So, but I love the argument for Hawkinson. Uh, the only thing I worry about Hawkinson is particularly with these other choices. Now, in other choices, I would go Hawkinson, but in this one, we're going to go with you're going to go Hawkinson. I'm leaning towards Pitts, but
Fair.
as I said, I am a Saints fan. I talked about that earlier in the show. I got a really bad bias against him, as you can tell, but I really think Pitts gets a long touchdown this week. All right, folks. As we mentioned, that was going to be our last question. We're going to call it a wrap. Thank you all for joining us. Steve, thank you. Both Sean and Michael had personal situations. Hope to have them both back next week. But if
Yeah,
not, I might be calling on Steve. He's such an expert, as you all heard today. Steve, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. You can
anytime.
find him on at Dynasty Santa. You can find me at Ricky Rod 66. Wishing y'all all a great week 10. Watch the IDP Plus Advice Show with yours truly on starting on Wednesday mornings. Watch many of our shows. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. We have a 20% off right now at IDP Plus. Come check us out. We also have a month-long subscription if you want to check us out. We got a lot of great content and tools there. And with that, Be good. Be kind to one another. Be safe and have a great week 10. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Good luck.